The last train to New York. On a cold autumn morning, New York City was slowly waking up. The streets were still wet from the rain, and the sky was painted in soft shades of gray and gold. Inside Penn Station, hundreds of people were waiting. Some were going to work, some were visiting family, and some were chasing dreams. Among them stood a man named Daniel Carter, holding a small, worn suitcase. Today was not just another day. Today, Daniel was starting over. Eos. Daniel was born in a small town in Ohio. His father worked in a factory. His mother was a school librarian. They were not rich, but they believed in hard work. When Daniel was a child, his father often said, "In America, you can become anything, but only if you never give up." Daniel believed those words. He carried them with him everywhere. After high school, Daniel moved to Chicago to study journalism. He dreamed of becoming a writer, someone who could tell real stories, stories about real people. At first, life felt hopeful. He studied during the day, worked at night, and wrote articles for a small local newspaper. Everything seemed possible, until it wasn't. In 2008, the financial crisis hit America hard. The newspaper closed, jobs disappeared, rent became impossible to pay. Friends left the city one by one. Some returned home, others gave up on their dreams. Daniel stayed. He believed success was just one step away. Years passed. Daniel worked many jobs: waiter, delivery driver, night shift clerk. He kept writing, but no one answered. Emails were ignored. Manuscripts were rejected. Slowly, his dream became heavy, like a suitcase filled with stones. One winter night, while cleaning offices as a janitor, Daniel found an old newspaper in the trash. The headline read, "America, a nation built by dreamers." Daniel smiled sadly and whispered, "What happens when the dreamers get tired?" At 31, Daniel lost his apartment. For months, he slept on a friend's couch. One evening, his friend looked at him and said, "Maybe it's time to start over somewhere else." That night, Daniel bought a one-way train ticket to New York City. New York was loud, fast, unforgiving, but it was also alive. Daniel rented a tiny room in Brooklyn. In the mornings, he worked in a coffee shop. At night, he wrote freelance articles online. One day, an elderly woman dropped her notebook on the floor. Daniel picked it up. Inside were handwritten stories. "You're a writer?" Daniel asked. She smiled. "I was once." Her name was Margaret Lewis. She had been a journalist in the 1970s during a time of great change in America. Every morning they talked. Margaret read Daniel's writing. She didn't praise him. She didn't criticize him. She only said, "You write well, but you're afraid to tell the truth." "What truth?" Daniel asked. Margaret replied, "The truth about failure, about disappointment, about America not always keeping its promises." Those words changed everything. That night Daniel wrote again, not about success, not about heroes, but about invisible people, tired workers, immigrants, forgotten dreamers. He wrote about the real America. Weeks later, Daniel sent his story to an online magazine. This time, they replied. The story went viral. Thousands of people shared it. Comments flooded in. "This is my story. This is America. Thank you for telling the truth." For the first time, Daniel felt heard. More opportunities followed, more stories, more readers. Daniel was not rich. He was not famous, but his voice mattered. One morning, Daniel returned to the coffee shop. Margaret was not there. The owner spoke softly. "She passed away last night." Later that day, Daniel received an envelope. Inside was Margaret's notebook and a note. "America needs honest voices. Don't stop writing." Years later, Daniel stood on a stage in New York, holding his first book. The title was simple, "Still Dreaming." In the audience were people from different cultures, different stories, different dreams. That was America. Not perfect, not easy, but still worth believing in. Daniel remembered his father's words, "You can become anything if you never give up." He smiled. He had not become rich. He had not become famous. But he had become a voice. And sometimes that is the real American dream.